What if I told you that the cure for your chronic stress, your persistent brain fog, and even your rapidly aging cells isn't sitting in some expensive pill bottle?
Right, or waiting for you at the end of some, 10-day silent meditation retreat.
Exactly. What if the key to unlocking a massive systemic biological reset is actually, well, sitting exactly half an inch outside your ear canal right now?
I mean, it is a genuinely staggering proposition.
Yeah.
Especially when you consider how we've been conditioned to think about human healing for so long.
Yeah, we totally treat our biology like it's this incredibly fragile, degrading machine, right? Like you accumulate stress, you get sick, your cells age, and
the accepted wisdom is just that you have to manage the decline.
Right. You take a medication, you try to sleep a little more, and you just sort of hope your body eventually figures out how to patch the drywall.
Exactly. So the idea that there is an active, physical, manual switch one that we can physically manipulate to force the body into deep cellular repair, it completely shatters our conventional understanding of physiology.
It really does. So, welcome to the deep dive. Today, we are exploring this fascinating collision between ancient medical wisdom and, honestly, cutting-edge modern neurobiology.
And the most incredible part of this entire journey, at least for me, is that it all focuses on one tiny, highly specific piece of human anatomy.
Yeah. We are not talking about complex surgeries or, mysterious imported supplements here. We are talking about the tragus.
The tragus, yeah.
If you're listening to this right now, you can probably just reach up and feel it. It's that small, slightly firm flap of cartilage sticking out right in front of your ear canal.
Which is so funny because for the longest time, from a purely Western anatomical standpoint, the outer ear was essentially viewed as, well, just an acoustic funnel.
Right, just a fleshy satellite dish designed to catch sound waves.
Exactly, just directing sound toward the eardrum. But the biological mechanisms we are unpacking today suggest something far more profound is happening right at the surface of the skin.
So our mission today, our goal for this deep dive, is to pull apart the science behind this very specific biological trigger. We want to understand how physically massaging this tiny piece of cartilage can supposedly unlock your DNA, reverse cellular damage, and initiate a massive body-wide self-reconstruction.
It's a huge claim.
It's massive. So let's unpack this. Because to truly understand how rubbing a tiny flap of ear cartilage can talk directly to your DNA, we have to go on a serious biological road trip today.
Absolutely. We're going from the outer ear, down the body's nerve superhighway, and right into the nucleus of the cell.
Plunging straight through the membrane. And the whole foundation for this journey rests on an overarching concept that bridges two very different paradigms. The source material refers to it as Zeo, or Zizal.
Right, Zeo and Zizal. These terms, they represent a profound systemic self-reconstruction of biological organism. And to really grasp why this is so revolutionary, we have to kind of look at the history of medicine.
Yeah, lay that out for us.
So for millennia, traditional Chinese medicine and other ancient practices, they mapped out the human body using invisible networks, meridians, pressure points, energy channels.
The stuff that Western medicine historically sort of rolled its eyes at.
Exactly. But ancient practitioners observed, over literally thousands of years, that if you manipulated point A on the outside of the body, you could have a dramatic, measurable healing effect on organ B deep inside the body.
Even if those 2 points seemed entirely disconnected.
Right. And for decades, modern Western medicine looked at those maps and essentially said, well, we don't see the wires.
Right. They dissected the human body and couldn't find a literal physical tube or a nerve bundle that neatly connected, say, the earlobe to the liver.
Exactly. Western science demanded physical infrastructure. But this concept of Zeo, or Zizal, represents the exact intersection where these two massive medical paradigms finally shake hands.
Which is so cool.
It really is. It's the concept of massive biological self-reconstruction guided by ancient observational maps, but now entirely explained through the highly specific, incredibly complex lens of modern neurobiology. Yeah. I mean, we finally found the wires.
Okay, I want to make sure I'm picturing this right for the listener. Let's think of the human body as a highly complex, incredibly secure, closed-loop server room.
I like that.
So inside that server room is our absolute optimal health. Our cellular youth, our perfect immune response, our limitless energy. And in our modern wellness culture, we are constantly trying to hack our way into that room.
Oh, constantly.
We try extreme diets, cold plunges, 50 different biohacking supplements. We are basically throwing rocks at the server room door, hoping it opens.
Yeah, just brute forcing it.
Right. But what we are looking at today suggests that the tragus acts as a literal exposed access terminal on the outside of the building. You don't need to break the door down. You just need to know how to type in the right code at the keypad.
That's a phenomenal way to visualize it, because traditional medicine has always recognized that certain external points on the skin act as gateways to internal systems.
Right.
But what elevates this conversation from ancient philosophy to hard neuroscience is the biological mechanism. We aren't talking about abstract energy flow anymore.
We're talking hard science.
Yes. If the tragus is the keypad on the outside of the server room, neurobiology has finally mapped the exact physical fiber optic cables that run from the back of that terminal through the firewall directly into the main biological mainframe.
Okay, so that brings us to the actual anatomy. If the tragus is the keypad, what are the literal wires connected to it? Like when we massage that specific piece of cartilage, how does physical pressure turn into a biological command?
Well, this is where the sheer genius of human anatomy reveals itself. The tragus and the highly specific area of skin immediately surrounding the ear canal, they're uniquely innervated by a structure called the auricular branch of the vagus nerve.
The vagus nerve,
Yeah.
the superstar of the nervous system.
The undisputed superstar. The word vagus actually stems from the Latin word for wandering.
Wandering.
I love that. Yeah, and it earns that name because this massive nerve bundle originates deep in your brainstem, right? And then it wanders down through your neck, it branches into your chest to wrap around your heart and lungs, and then it plunges deep into your abdomen to connect to almost your entire digestive tract.
So it's essentially the master control cable for all your internal organs.
It absolutely is.
But the key here, the thing that makes this so wild, is that almost all of that massive superhighway is buried deep inside the body. Like you can't just reach out and touch your own vagus nerve in your chest.
Precisely. You can't access it, except at the ear.
The auricular branch.
Yes. The auricular branch is the single location in the entire human body where this massive internal neurological superhighway surfaces directly beneath the skin. It comes right up into the tragus.
Which means we have direct manual access to the master control cable of our organs.
We do.
But I want to get really granular here, if we can, because a lot of people throw around terms like nerve stimulation, online or in wellness blogs. But what is actually happening physically and biologically when I take my finger and massage the cartilage of my tragus?
Okay, to answer that, we have to look at a biological process called mechanotransduction.
Mechanotransduction. Okay.
Yeah, when you physically press and rub the skin of the tragus, you're doing a lot more than just moving tissue around. The skin there is absolutely packed with specialized nerve endings.
Okay.
When you apply physical pressure, you are literally deforming the cellular membranes of those nerve endings.
Okay, wait, when you say deforming, that sounds a little destructive, like I'm damaging it.
Ah, right. No, in a biological context, deformation just means changing the physical shape of the cell.
Oh, gotcha.
Imagine a balloon. When you squeeze a balloon, the rubber stretches. It doesn't break. It just changes shape.
Right.
So when the cellular membrane of these nerve endings stretches from the massage, it physically pulls open these tiny microscopic pores in the cell wall. These are called ion channels.
Okay, so the stretching physically pops these little doors open.
Exactly. And when those channels are forced open by the physical pressure, sodium ions rush from the outside of the cell to the inside.
Okay.
This sudden shift in electrical charge creates what we call an action potential. It literally converts the mechanical force of your finger into a literal electrical signal.
Wow. So physical touch is instantly translated into biological electricity.
Instantly. And that electrical signal travels at lightning speed up the auricular branch directly into the medulla oblongata, which is the control center in your lower brainstem.
The medulla oblongata, I remember that from high school biology.
Right. And when that electrical signal hits the brainstem, it triggers a massive localized neurochemical cascade. The brainstem responds by sending a command back down the main trunk of the vagus nerve to release a highly specific neurotransmitter.
And this is acetylcholine, right?
Yes, acetylcholine. Yeah.
And this is where the magic really starts to happen, because acetylcholine is essentially the body's master anti-inflammatory chemical.
It is deeply powerful. Once released, acetylcholine travels through the bloodstream and binds directly to receptors on your immune cells, specifically your macrophages.
Okay, so the immune system's frontline defenders.
Exactly. And when acetylcholine docks onto those macrophage receptors, it sends a chemical command that literally halts the production of pro-inflammatory proteins, things like TNF-alpha.
So it's not just like soothing the inflammation, it's actively cutting off the supply.
Right. It acts like a chemical fire extinguisher, immediately shutting down systemic inflammation. But beyond just putting out the fire, this electrical signal from the tragus forces the entire body to shift gears on a systemic level.
How so?
It flips the master switch of your autonomic nervous system from the sympathetic state to the parasympathetic state.
Okay, let's break those two states down for the listener, because the sympathetic state is what we commonly call the fight or flight response, right?
Yes. The sympathetic nervous system is our evolutionary survival mechanism.
The stress mode.
Right. If you're a hunter-gatherer and a predator jumps out of the bushes, your sympathetic system takes over instantly. It floods your body with adrenaline and cortisol. Your heart rate skyrockets, your pupils dilate, blood is shunted away from your organs and pushed into your skeletal muscles so you can run for your life.
Right, you get ready to fight or run.
Exactly. And crucially, to conserve energy for that immediate survival, the body immediately shuts down all non-essential long-term projects.
Like what?
Like deep cellular repair, digestion, immune system optimization. All that is paused. I mean, your body doesn't care about repairing a slightly mutated skin cell or digesting your breakfast if you might be eaten in the next 5 minutes.
Right, which makes perfect sense. But wait, I have to challenge this logic for a second.
Go for it.
If stimulating this tiny piece of cartilage is the ultimate biological reset button, if shifting into this parasympathetic state is so incredibly vital for healing, why didn't evolution just make that process automatic? Like, why is our biology relying on us to manually massage our own ear to heal ourselves? If it's that important, shouldn't the body just do it on its own?
That is the perfect question. And the answer lies in a massive evolutionary mismatch. Evolution did make it automatic, but for the environment we evolved in the ancestral environment, stress was acute and temporary. The tiger chased you. You either escaped or you were eaten.
Right, problem solved one way or the other.
Exactly. If you escaped, the threat disappeared. Your brain registered that you were safe, and the vagus nerve automatically kicked the body back into the parasympathetic rest and digest state. The repair crews came back online automatically. The problem isn't our biological hardware. The problem is our modern environment.
Because in the modern world, the tiger never leaves.
Exactly. Our bodies simply did not evolve to differentiate between the life-threatening physical danger of a predator and the chronic, relentless psychological stress of modern life.
So, to your nervous system, a looming mortgage payment or an overflowing email inbox.
Or a traumatic news cycle. Or the constant pinging of your smartphone.
Those are all interpreted as tigers.
Yes. They are all tigers. As long as you feel that low-grade psychological overwhelm, your brain keeps the sympathetic fight-or-flight system engaged. It's like leaving your car's engine redlining in neutral all day long.
Wow. So speaking directly to you, the listener, if you ever feel that bone-deep, heavy exhaustion at the end of a long week where your body just aches and your brain is foggy, that isn't a character flaw.
Not at all.
It is a biological reality. Because you've been in a low-grade fight or flight state all week, your biology has been literally putting off essential cellular maintenance just to keep you bright and alert.
Exactly.
The repair crews have been locked out of the building. You are actively accumulating biological damage and generating systemic inflammation simply by existing in a stressful environment.
And that right there is why the Tragus mechanism is so empowering.
Okay.
Because our environment is keeping us locked in the sympathetic state, we actually need a manual override.
The keypad.
The keypad. By physically stimulating the auricular branch of the vagus nerve, we bypass the cognitive stress response entirely. You don't have to spend years mastering meditation to convince your anxious brain that you are safe.
Which is hard to do when you have a deadline anyway.
Exactly. Instead, you are using mechanotransduction to generate an electrical signal that chemically forces the brainstem to flip the switch. You manually activate the parasympathetic nervous system, which is the only biological state where deep cellular healing, or ZIO, can actually occur.
Okay, this is so fascinating. So we've typed the code into the access terminal. We've sent the electrical signal up to the brainstem. We've flooded the bloodstream with acetylcholine to put out the inflammatory fires.
Right.
And we've successfully forced the body into the parasympathetic healing state. But this is where I really want to connect the dots biologically. Acetylcholine puts out the fire in the bloodstream. But for real, deep self-reconstruction to happen, that healing command has to go deeper.
Oh, much deeper.
It has to cross the cellular membrane and actually get inside the cell. And that's where we hit a wall, literally, because once that signal gets inside the cell, it has to interact with the nucleus, where our DNA is stored. So how do those repair crews actually know what they're supposed to fix?
And this brings us to the microscopic, atomic level of the deep dive.
Yeah.
And honestly, the research here is beautifully poetic while remaining strictly grounded in molecular biology.
I love when that happens.
Right. So once the parasympathetic cascade reaches the interior of the cell, it seeks out the central operating system, your DNA. Almost every single cell nucleus in your body contains the exact same complete set of DNA. It is the ultimate architectural schematic for perfect cellular health.
And the source material references ancient mythology here, right? Calling this pristine DNA Nua's original source code blueprint.
Yes.
Just for context for the listener, Nua is the creator goddess in ancient Chinese mythology who is said to have molded humanity out of yellow clay. She represents the absolute, divine, uncorrupted origin of human life.
Which is a beautiful way to think about it.
Right. So by calling our DNA Nua's original source kind of blueprint, it's using this powerful cultural metaphor to describe the human genome in its absolute factory perfect state. The blueprint is flawless.
The genetic code itself is flawless, yes. But here we run headfirst into a field of biology known as epigenetics.
Epigenetics. The game changer.
Absolutely. The word epigenetics literally translates to above or on top of genetics. It is the study of how your environment, your behaviors, and your stress levels cause physical changes that affect the way your body reads your DNA.
Okay.
Now, this is crucial. Epigenetic changes do not mutate or alter your underlying DNA sequence. Nua's perfect blueprint is still completely intact.
So my DNA isn't broken.
No, it's not broken at all. But epigenetics changes your body's ability to actually access that blueprint.
Okay, let's make this really concrete, because the word epigenetics can feel a bit abstract for a lot of people.
Sure.
Instead of a locked safe, let's think of your DNA like a master sheet of orchestral music.
Okay, I follow.
Nua's blueprint is the original, brilliant Mozart composition. Every single note is perfect. And if the orchestra plays it exactly as written, you get a masterpiece, which is optimal cellular health.
Beautiful.
But epigenetics is like a highly stressed out conductor. When the environment gets tough, like when you are exposed to toxins, poor diet, emotional trauma, or chronic stress, the conductor starts frantically slapping thick black duct tape over complex sections of the sheet music.
Wow.
The original notes are still underneath the tape, right? They aren't gone. But the orchestra can no longer read them, so they end up playing a much simpler, lower energy, compromised version of the song just to get through the performance.
That is a remarkably accurate analogy for how epigenetic gene silencing works on a molecular level. Seriously, because when we talk about that duct tape, what we are literally talking about are tiny chemical clusters called methyl groups.
Methyl groups.
Yes. When the biological system is under chronic sympathetic stress, when the tiger is always chasing you, the body decides it simply cannot afford to expend the massive energy required to run the perfect cellular blueprint.
It goes into survival mode.
Exactly. It goes into energy rationing mode. So the body deploys enzymes that physically attach these methyl groups directly to the cytosine bases of your DNA strand.
Wait, so it's a literal physical obstruction?
It is entirely physical. The DNA strand is essentially coiled tightly around these proteins called histones. And when these methyl groups attach, they cause the DNA to coil even tighter.
Like knotting up a shoelace.
Yeah. This physical clumping makes it literally impossible for the cellular machinery, specifically an enzyme called RNA polymerase, which is responsible for reading the genes to access the genetic code.
It just can't get in there.
Right. The genes that control optimal regeneration, vibrant energy production, perfect immune response, they are physically blocked off. And again, the body isn't doing this to destroy you. It is an evolutionary adaptation to ensure short-term survival during periods of extreme stress or famine.
But the long-term result of that survival mechanism is devastating.
Exactly. Because we live in a state of chronic stress, those methyl groups just pile up. The duct tape covers more and more of the sheet music over the years.
Oh.
This epigenetic silencing is exactly why our innate regenerative capabilities become hidden. It is why our cells replicate with more and more errors over time. It is literally the fundamental mechanism behind biological aging. We have the perfect instruction manual for youth and health inside almost every cell, but our stressed out bodies have glued the pages shut.
Which brings us to the absolute climax of this biological journey. I mean, we have this beautifully complex dual reality going on.
Right.
On one side, we have this perfect mythological level DNA blueprint that has been completely bound and gagged by the chemical duct tape of modern stress.
Yeah.
But on the other side, we have this massive parasympathetic anti-inflammatory command signal that we just generated by manually stimulating the vagus nerve at the tragus.
You have a right code.
Exactly. So what is the exact physical pathway here. What happens when that parasympathetic signal finally penetrates the nucleus and crashes into that locked, taped-up DNA?
This is the biological manifestation of ZO. This is the self-reconstruction. The massive parasympathetic signal doesn't just stop at the cell membrane. The neurochemical cascade actually alters the internal environment of the cell.
Okay, how?
When the body is chemically forced into this profound state of safety, this rest and digest state, the cellular priority shifts from survival back to maintenance. And that parasympathetic signaling triggers the activation of specific intracellular enzymes known as DNA demethylases.
Demethylases, meaning they remove the methyl groups.
Exactly. If the methyl groups are the duct tape, the DNA demethylases are the molecular scissors.
Oh, that's brilliant.
The vagus nerve signal essentially commands these enzymes to seek out the genome and actively shear off the chemical tags that have been silencing your optimal genes.
They cut the tape away.
Yes. And as a result, the DNA uncoils from the histones, the physical obstruction is completely removed, so RNA polymerase can suddenly access and read the DNA sequence again. The epigenetic locks are disengaged.
I really want to pause and emphasize something crucial here for the listener, because if you look at the broader wellness industry, there's this endless push to sell you something external.
Oh, always. Synthetic stem cell injections, hyperbaric chambers.
Exotic compounds from the Amazon, you name it. But what this neurobiological mechanism highlights is that we are not introducing a single external element into the body.
Not one.
You aren't injecting synthetic repair juice. This process is about reawakening an undamaged state that already exists inside you. The perfect code was already written. You're just manually sending a signal that grants your cells permission to read the original manual again.
And when the cell reads that original manual, the results are staggering. The research uses a highly specific, very potent phrase to describe the outcome of this epigenetic unlocking. It states that this process initiates a stem cell-like regenerative state.
Okay, wait. I have to push back here for a second, because this is where a skeptical listener might feel like we are crossing from hard science into science fiction.
Fair enough. Let's unpack it.
Because it is one thing to say massaging your ear creates an anti-inflammatory effect. Less swelling, lower cortisol, we can easily grasp that.
Right.
But it is an entirely different universe to claim that we are actively tricking our adult, worn-out, genetically locked cells into acting like brand new stem cells just by rubbing a piece of cartilage. I mean, how does this actually work on a cellular level? We aren't actually creating new embryonic stem cells, are we?
No, we are not creating embryonic stem cells. And that is a vital, vital distinction to make. To understand the mechanism, we need to quickly define what a true stem cell is. A true stem cell is a master cell. It's pristine, untouched by epigenetic damage, and possesses the limitless potential to replicate endlessly or differentiate into any specialized tissue the body needs.
It's a blank slate.
Exactly. In contrast, an adult specialized cell, like a liver cell or a skin cell, is highly limited. You can only make copies of itself. And over time, due to all that epigenetic silencing and DNA damage we talked about, those copies become lower and lower quality.
Right, the photocopy of a photocopy effect.
Exactly. This is called cellular senescence. The cell essentially becomes a zombie. It stops dividing, but it refuses to die, and it just sits there secreting inflammatory toxins.
Gross. So how does the vagus nerve signal fix a zombie cell?
Well, when those DNA demethylases strip away the epigenetic locks, they expose the genes responsible for deep cellular maintenance. The adult cell doesn't turn into an embryo, but it adopts what we call a stem cell-like phenotype.
Meaning it acts like one.
Meaning it begins to behave with the vigor and accuracy of a master cell. Specifically, the unlocked genes trigger a massive upregulation of a process called autophagy.
Autophagy, I've heard of that in fasting circles.
Yes. The word autophagy literally translates to self-eating. The newly awakened cell essentially acts like a microscopic Roomba.
A Roomba?
Yeah, it seeks out damaged proteins, dysfunctional mitochondria, and cellular debris accumulated from years of stress, and it consumes and recycles them.
So it completely cleans house.
It cleans house completely. And simultaneously, the unlocked blueprint triggers mitochondrial biogenesis, which is the creation of brand new, highly efficient cellular power plants.
Wow.
So think about it. The adult cell is cleared of debris, its power supply is restored, and because the duct tape is off the DNA, when it finally does divide, it creates a perfect error-free copy of itself. That is the stem cell-like regenerative state. It is a profound cellular renewal driven entirely from the inside out.
That is mind-bending. I mean, it implies that the physical degradation we universally associate with aging the failing joints, the slowing metabolism, the weakening immune system, isn't necessarily a structural failure. It isn't inevitable wear and tear.
No, it's a software issue.
It's a software issue. It's an epigenetic misconfiguration caused by the fact that our nervous systems are chronically stuck in survival mode.
It absolutely redefines our biological limitations. It proves that our biology is far more plastic and regenerative than we previously believed, provided we can give it the correct neurological input.
Which is just wild.
It is. But now, seeing one microscopic cell repair its own mitochondria is astounding. But to really grasp the magnitude of ZIO, or biological self-reconstruction, we have to zoom back out.
Let's scale it up.
Yeah, we have to scale this cellular event back up to the macro level. Because when you stimulate the auricular branch of the vagus nerve, this neurochemical cascade isn't just happening to a single cell in a petri dish.
Right.
It is happening systemically. Billions of cells across multiple organ systems are removing their epigenetic locks simultaneously. And that leads to the final sweeping outcome of this process.
The macro level reset. Because if billions of your cells are suddenly reading NUA's original source code again, sweeping up the garbage through autophagy, and acting like rejuvenated stem cells, your body isn't just patching up a minor scrape.
No.
The material points to a comprehensive systemic reset of our biological forms. We are talking about the restoration of entire organ systems.
Yes. When the parasympathetic nervous system is allowed to maintain this deep healing state over time, the localized cellular repair scales up to massive anatomical repair. We see what the clinical observations describe as profound organ function restoration.
Give me some examples of that.
Well, take the liver, which is already a highly regenerative organ. This process accelerates its ability to clear out fatty deposits and regenerate healthy hepatocytes. Or the cardiovascular system. It repairs the endothelial lining of the blood vessels, reducing arterial stiffness.
Wow.
Even the gut microbiome, which is intimately connected to the vagus nerve through the gut-brain axis, it rebalances itself, massively reducing systemic gut inflammation.
It really is the ultimate factory reset. I mean, think about what happens when your laptop or smartphone has been running for 3 years without a break. It's bloated with background apps, the registry is corrupted, the battery drains in an hour, and it constantly freezes.
We've all been there.
Right. And when you finally back up your files and hit that hard factory reset button, the machine wipes the hard drive clean. It reinstalls the core operating system exactly as it was coded by the engineers.
Yes.
The phone reboots, and it runs as smoothly and swiftly as the day you unboxed it. By manually utilizing the tragus to stimulate the vagus nerve, we are hitting the biological factory reset. We are wiping clean the glitchy, stress-induced epigenetic software and allowing the biological hardware to run on its original perfect guidance.
That's exactly it. And if we look at the long-term value of adopting this practice, we're looking at an incredibly powerful, entirely internal anti-aging protocol.
Anti-aging without the expensive creams.
Exactly. As we discussed, biological aging is essentially the progressive accumulation of unrepaired damage because we spend too much time in sympathetic survival mode.
Right.
By consciously manually triggering the vagus nerve through the ear, you are actively combating that daily accumulation. You aren't just waiting to heal a specific injury. You are engaging in continuous, uninterrupted cellular renewal. You are consistently re-triggering the body's natural regenerative blueprint before the epigenetic damage has a chance to permanently set in.
So speaking directly to you again, the listener, I know how overwhelming it can be to try and take care of your health today. We are constantly bombarded with an endless stream of complex medical advice, expensive biohacking gadgets, and terrifying statistics about chronic disease. It is exhausting just trying to figure out what actually works.
It really is.
But what is so incredibly beautiful about this deep dive is how it cuts through all that noise. It requires zero equipment. It requires zero financial investment. It demands nothing but an understanding of your own built-in miraculous neurochemistry and the knowledge of a tiny anatomical access point that has been hiding in plain sight your entire life. It is the ultimate shortcut to being profoundly well-informed about your own biological capabilities.
It is the true democratization of deep healing. It perfectly marries the intuitive wisdom of traditional practices with the rigorous, observable mechanisms of modern science. It removes the mysticism and replaces it with tangible molecular reality.
Right, because we can track the science.
Exactly. We could trace the mechanotransduction, we can measure the acetylcholine release,
Right.
we can literally observe the DNA demethylases, removing the epigenetic tags under a microscope. It might sound like pure science fiction to claim that you can massage a piece of ear cartilage to rewrite your cellular destiny, but the underlying mechanisms are firmly rooted in human biology.
It's just facts.
It is. It serves as a powerful reminder of how much untapped, pristine potential is lying completely dormant within our own architecture, just waiting for us to send the right signal.
As we start to pull back up to the surface here, let's briefly recap the staggering biological road trip we just took. We started on the very outside of the body, focusing on the tragus, that tiny piece of cartilage that serves as the only exposed terminal of the massive vagus nerve superhighway.
The keypad.
The keypad. We learned how mechanotransduction converts physical massage into an electrical action potential. That electrical signal shoots up to the brainstem, pulling the emergency brake on our chronic modern stress response and flooding the body with anti-inflammatory acetylcholine.
Putting out the fire.
Right. We then dove deep into the cell nucleus, where that shift into the parasympathetic state deploys molecular scissors to cut away the epigenetic duct tape caused by years of stress. That unlocking exposes NUA's original perfect DNA source code, forcing adult exhausted cells to adopt a stem cell-like regenerative state through autophagy.
Sweeping out the garbage.
Sweeping it all out. And finally, we zoomed back out to see how billions of cells undergoing this process simultaneously leads to a macro-level factory reset, restoring entire organ systems and actively fighting the very mechanisms of aging.
It is a remarkable synthesis of biology. The concept of ZO self-reconstruction isn't magic. It is simply human biology, allowed to function at its absolute highest uncorrupted potential, facilitated by a specific mechanical trigger. Knowledge of our own internal structure is undoubtedly the most powerful medical tool we possess.
Knowledge truly is the ultimate tool. And on that note, we want to leave you with a final thought to mull over as you go about the rest of your day, dealing with the emails and the traffic and the noise.
The tigers.
The modern tigers, yeah.
Yeah.
We've just spent this entire deep dive exploring how a tiny, seemingly insignificant flap of cartilage in your ear holds the complex neurochemical access code to unlock your body's perfect genetic blueprint. It makes you wonder, if the tragus is the physical keypad to our cellular factory reset, what other extraordinary hidden access terminals might be hiding in plain sight on the surface of your own body, just waiting for modern science to finally decode them?
Gives you chills.
It really does. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning, keep learning, and maybe give your ear a little massage the next time you feel that stress starting to build. Take care.